You are watching Tech Confessions, created by Amy Lewis and brought to you by VMware.
Hi, Bruce. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
So, simple question here on Tech Confessions. What was your software-defined moment as a technologist? When did that switch flip for you? When did you get interested?
Well, so I got interested in software when I was about 14. And computers were actually hard to get access to in those days. This was the 70s. So I've been into software for a long time. I guess there was also a moment quite late in my career where I realized that software was the right way to do networking, and that, to be honest, networking has always had a huge software component. And when I worked at Cisco, we had way more software engineers than hardware engineers because that's what it took to build a router. But we also had this experience where you could build line cards that were very highly optimized for performance, but completely inflexible, or you could build ones that had programmable forwarding engines that were much more flexible. So that was kind of my belief for a long time, was that the right way to do networking was really to do it in software, but sometimes you had to go to hardware for performance. I guess the really big shift was, I hope you don't mind the long answer.
No, love it.
But yeah, the really big shift for me was around 2009, I started to notice the rise of SDN in the academic world. And
that's where you saw it in academia first.
Yeah, I remember being at a conference in 2009, and there were just so many people talking about OpenFlow, and a bunch of Stanford people there, and so that was the first time I started to pay attention to it. And then by 2011, I was pretty convinced that it had legs. And so at that point, the only question was, what direction was it going to go, and where could I go to have an impact in that? And ultimately, I decided that Nicira was the place to do it. So that's the long version to that question.
Oh, that's okay. I want to keep you even longer, so I have to go back to what you said at the beginning. So you remember at 14, a switch flipped for you. What happened? Did you get access to a computer, or what was it that at 14?
Yeah. So my dad worked at a university, and they were in the process of procuring mainframes, and so I got exposure to what a computer looked like, and I remember being shown a printout of a Peanuts character that was done in ASCII characters on a big mainframe. So I kind of knew what computers looked like and what they could do pretty early. And I think it was around age 14, 15 that one of my friends managed to somehow got us accounts on a computer at another university. And so we could go in there on the weekends and program. And I think we programmed on little VT100 terminals. I don't even remember what kind of computer it was, but that's what we started doing with our free time. So I was obviously a total geek from an early age.
I just love that because it's so the but the 10,000 hours you hear about from Malcolm Gladwell. So that was you too, right?
Yeah.
You got access early and the bug bit you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I do love that story about how you had to be born in between 1956 and 1958 to be really big in the computer industry, because that's how you got those 10,000 hours ahead of everybody else. So I was basically born just 5 years too late to be really successful in the computer industry.
I think you made out okay. So, Bruce, we always love to hear from you about the future of networking. So can you look into the crystal ball? What are you chewing and stewing on? What do you think's coming?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not a great futurist, but I'll say to some level, a lot of what we're going to see in the future is more of the same. And by more of the same, I mean more of what we've been doing with NSX and network virtualization for the last 7 years or so, which is making the provisioning of networks something that's really automated, something that's really secure, and where you can build your networks to connect all these different devices, all these different types of endpoints. That has to become something that's extremely rapid and automated. And so we had this vision a few years ago of NSX everywhere, where we were sort of saying you'll use your network virtualization to connect remote offices and branches, containers, virtual machines, things in the cloud. At some point we'll figure out how to do it with serverless functions. All that stuff I think is going to happen. And one of the big trends in networking is absolutely the sort of increasingly distributed nature of applications. And so you need to be able to network and secure those things. And so I like the example of what happens when you talk to Alexa, or whatever thing in your house you prefer to give all your secrets to, and have them stored in a cloud that may or may not be secure. I like the idea that some code runs on Alexa, there's some machine learning up in the cloud that's figuring out how to do voice recognition, there's some little serverless function that runs somewhere to do the action that you asked Alexa to do for you. So it's all very highly distributed, and all of that needs to be connected and it needs to be secured. And so, I always have tremendous respect for the people who were the real pioneers of the internet, the ones born about 5 years before me, I guess. And the thing is, they pretty much will all agree that they did a good job on getting connectivity to billions of people, although Vint Cerf does admit that he should have gone with more than 32 bits for the address field, but it was a pretty good guess at the time. But the thing they also pretty much agree, at least the ones I've spoken to, is we weren't really that focused on security. It was like, how do we connect all the computers in the world? All 20 of them or whatever it was at that point. And so, security wasn't in the original architecture.
Yeah.
And so today the good news is billions of people are connected to the internet, an incredible success story from a scaling point of view. The bad news is you're connected to spammers and hackers and bots and everything. And so that's the problem of not having security as part of the architecture. And so I think, the direction we're going, and it's not just us, but the entire world is heading down this path where you will interconnect whatever your endpoints are in this sort of very highly automated, agile layer of software that doesn't just connect things, but it secures them as well. And so whether you're looking at service mesh or the next version of NSX or whatever, it's going to be that software layer that connects all the endpoints securely. And so at some level, I'm really saying the stuff we started to do a long time ago, we're just going to do a lot more of it, and there's going to be new and more complex things for us to connect. But it does seem to me that trend just goes on and on.
Well, I guess they outdid themselves, right? They connected more things than they expected, but then security through obscurity is not really a choice for us anymore.
Yeah, I think we've seen that very well demonstrated at this point.
This is amazing, Bruce. Thank you so much for your perspectives. I could talk to you forever about this stuff. It's so interesting.
It's been a pleasure, and happy to do this again sometime.
Excellent. We look forward to it. When you're ready to make your tech confession, join us at techconfessionstheshow.com.